I have very mixed feelings about the waiver wire this week. You know, you never like a good waiver wire week at running back because it means other running backs got injured. But now we're seeing these injuries might not be long-term at all. So it's somewhat of a confusing waiver wire as we get into week 12. We welcome you to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, and Jamie Eisenberg. We've got Michael Wilson. We've got Emmanuel Wilson. We've got Sean Tucker. We've got Kenneth Gainwell. But who should we prioritize? And what are we going to do at quarterback if we need one of those this week? What's going on, Dave Richard? How about that new look Cowboys defense?
This was kind of easy to see coming, at least for this matchup against the Raiders, because that offensive line was so terrible. But Quinnen Williams, what a difference maker. Huge against the run, huge against the Raiders didn't even try running the football. And the Cowboys got healthier on defense. They got a couple of players back in the secondary. And dare I say that this amazing matchup that we had for the first half of the season is gone. It's over. And the Cowboys are now a tough matchup for teams moving forward.
Ooh.
That being said, I think I'm still going to start my Eagles players in week 12.
Well, Eagles are 22nd in scoring. That's the funny part about this. Now they're facing this Dallas defense this week. That'll be a really interesting one to break down. Anyway, Jamie, it is waiver wire week after all. First of all, quick shout out in the chat to Ebbs and Flow, who predicted before the show started that I was going to have my orange shirt on. And he gave 3-1 odds. And congratulations, you nailed it. I guess I have to buy some new clothes. Well, 'tis the season, right? All right, Jamie, who are the top 3 waiver wire priorities for week 12?
There's a lot of different ways you can go with this. I put Kenneth Gainwell at the top, then Emmanuel Wilson second, and then Michael Wilson third.
Okay, Kenneth Gainwell, Emmanuel Wilson, Michael Wilson. Dave, how about you?
Emmanuel Wilson's at the top for me. And then I've got a whole lot of questions. But if I want certainty, I want guys that I'm pretty sure are going to start this week. Michael Wilson is going to be second. Jawan Johnson's going to be third. Your top 3 may vary based on your needs, your wants, your fantasy team. This is going to be the most complicated waiver wire week of the season and the most impactful one because it's going to make or break a bunch of fantasy teams fighting for playoff spots.
So where are we, Jamie, in terms of the health of Josh Jacobs, Jaylen Warren? It's funny because you could talk about Sean Tucker. Bucky Irving might be back this week. We don't know about Marvin Harrison Jr. But just looking at Pittsburgh and Green Bay backfields, where are we there?
We're in wait-and-see mode. The report on Jacobs was that it's a knee bruise, and he potentially could play this week. My guess is they probably keep him out, but could play this week. Jaylen Warren dealing with an ankle sprain, potentially could play this week. He said he could have gone back into the Bengals game, but we know how that goes sometimes with players. And we had the situation with him earlier this year where he was trending to play in the game in Ireland and then didn't play the morning of. So they've already given us an example of one time of him dealing with an injury and then not playing him that week. In the case of Sean Tucker, you mentioned Bucky Irving could return this week. He started practicing last week, so no surprise there. In the case of Michael Wilson, Marvin Harrison Jr. can return this week. It's not out of the realm of possibility that a player can come back 1 week later from, or just missing one game with an appendix situation. So there's a lot of moving parts with this. And so I think when you just look at it, like you look at, okay, who's played, who has the chance to maybe play more if the other player is injured in the case of Wilson and Gainwell. And then also just looking at some of the schedule situations, like if there's a scenario of Kenneth Gainwell being the starting running back for the Steelers, their next 3 games are great. So it could be fantastic for him if Jaylen Warren is going to miss any time. In the case of Emmanuel Wilson, I don't know if he's going to necessarily step into the Josh Jacobs role and be Josh Jacobs because this offensive line is not the same. Losing Jenkins at center, you saw it last week. It wasn't as dominant per se as it was. Now Jacobs is clearly a different player, so you're not going to worry about him as much as you might a backup. And we've seen this Vikings defense obviously play very Jekyll and Hyde in terms of how they defend the run. So for me, looking at it in Gainwell versus Wilson, yesterday, Adam, when we did FFT Express, I told you Wilson was number 1 for me, but then just sort of evaluating it, like Gainwell plays in tandem with Jaylen Warren pretty consistently. And now you're maybe giving him that role where we've seen him be absolutely dominant in that role. And so that for me puts him at the top.
Okay. So let's say we find out later today, which we won't, but hypothetically, Josh Jacobs and Kenneth and Jaylen Warren are both out this week. Dave, who would you prioritize?
If they're both out this week, then Gainwell is the problem. No question about it. And we might find out that today because Mike Tomlin talks to the media on Tuesdays. So if you're not doing anything on your lunch break on the East Coast or when you get into work on the West Coast, you can find Mike Tomlin's press conference on X, and he will probably comment on Jaylen Warren. And he might say something like in his own vernacular that doesn't necessarily help us, or he might say he's unlikely to practice this week. So he's usually not, when he's not vague about a player, you can take it to the bank. When he is vague about a player, then it probably means he legitimately doesn't know. But if we learn that Warren's ankle is a problem and 24 hours after a game it could get worse, then yeah, absolutely Gainwell would be the one that I would want.
The most amazing thing with the Steelers is that's not even remotely close to their first priority this week.
Oh, with Rodgers, with the quarterback?
With Rodgers and the Jalen Ramsey, Jamar Chase situation. Like you may get 15 questions in before you hear a word about Jalen Warren.
Sure. So Rodgers will be the story. I don't think Ramsey's getting suspended.
No. But it's still
the
going
questions
to be
about it.
That's the biggest story in the league right now. So
Tomlin will shut that down. And I promise you he'll be more vague about Rodgers unless he knows he's for sure out.
Yeah, right. So we got to see that situation. And Jamar Chase is suspended. I'm getting some questions about Jamar Chase trades. And I would say to you that if you've got a Jamar Chase manager in your league that's 5-6 or something like that, 4-7, desperate for a win, you need to go try to acquire Jamar Chase. You need to try to not rip this person off, but make a trade. And, this is like what you do when a guy's going into his bye week, but find the Jamar Chase owner and make him a trade for a lesser wide receiver. If obviously you have to be in position to be able to withstand not having Chase for a week, but this is an opportunity to have Jamar Chase down the stretch in your lineup and take advantage of a vulnerable fantasy manager.
And I don't know the answer to this. He is appealing this.
That's true.
And I'd be very surprised if he wins the appeal. Yeah. But when are they going to hear the appeal?
I believe that's today, and I believe the results could also come out today.
Then that's obviously, to what Adam said, makes 100% sense. But just in the off chance that they don't hear it this week, which I did not know, so apologize.
Don't apologize.
Then we could have this pushback potentially.
Come on, Jamie.
No. There was a case early. It was like a month ago. I can't remember what it was right now off the top of my head, but there was an appeal for suspension, and I think it was Jordy Nelson heard it and then immediately said, "Sorry, appeal denied. You're suspended."
All right. So
someone in the chat will remind us.
Kenneth Gainwell versus Emmanuel Wilson. Their schedules. Gainwell is so much better. Jamie was alluding to this. Chicago, Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami. We're not expecting Jaylen Warren to miss 4 games, but Wilson has Minnesota. They're 10th against running backs. They allow 4 yards per carry to running backs. They're inconsistent. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. The week after that is Detroit, and Detroit is legitimate. I mean, they are really good. They are the number 1 against running backs. So Wilson's got a tougher slate ahead than Gainwell if there's multi-week absences for the running backs in that backfield. Tucker has the Rams. They're really tough this week, although they have allowed a touchdown to a running back in 2 straight games. They hadn't done that all season before that. And Bucky Irving could be back as he was practicing last week. You got Zonovan Knight. That's interesting. You got Chris Rodriguez on a bye. But Zonovan Knight is a tough matchup too. Jacksonville's got a great run defense. You got Devin Singletary, but unfortunately the Giants facing Detroit this week. Detroit, again, number 1 against running backs. So it's like these and you've got Bashal Tutin. We don't know his status, but it seems like he's not seriously injured.
He said after the game that he's fine. So he spoke to the media post game, and there was one report from a Jacksonville TV station that he said he's fine. So, look, he was getting more touches than Travis Etienne before he got hurt.
It's true.
It was. They both got a lot. I think it was 15 carries for Tutin, 12 for Etienne, or 14 for Etienne, something like that. Let's call it
15 to 12.
15 to 12. Okay. So, anyway, it's really interesting because we got these really exciting opportunities for running backs, but they all could have their running mate, their starter back this week. It could be a bust. So then what do you pivot to Michael Wilson? Well, obviously there's the Marvin Harrison thing. Do you pivot to Juwan Johnson? Dave mentioned him. Before we move on and talk about FAB and all that.
There's one sneaky one, though.
Who? Who I miss?
Yoshivas.
He's had opportunities before, and I went back. I looked at the 5 games he played without T. Higgins last year, the 1 game he played without Jamar Chase 2 years ago. There've been a few touchdowns in there, but pretty much never really does anything at
I
Yoshavas.
just said he's sneaky. I didn't say he's guaranteed. Just sneaky.
Yeah.
Is he a top 5 wide receiver to add this week?
Oh, easily.
I don't know, man. There's a bunch of other ones that I like.
Bengals are playing New England. You might want to see if Ramondre Stevenson's on your waiver wire. I think he's 89% rostered. If, let's say, when Marvin Harrison gets back, I asked Jamie this yesterday, I think, on the early waiver wire show. But Dave, I'll ask you, when Marvin Harrison gets back, what do you expect from Michael Wilson?
7 or 8 PPR points.
Okay. Jamie,
4 catches, 40 yards, something. I don't think he did anything in last week's game that's going to earn him a significantly higher target share moving forward. He took advantage of a favorable game script and a quarterback that just would not stop throwing. And good for him. Like, it was a great game. And even if he did half as well, we'd still be putting him up at the top of the wide receiver ranking or wide receiver waiver rankings for this week, because we don't know if Marvin Harrison's going to play.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll move on here. By the way, we have a show today at CBS Sports Network, 1 p.m. Eastern. So hopefully we'll have some updated information for you by then. But check it out, 1 p.m. Eastern, CBS Sports Network. At the end of the show, we'll be answering your questions. I have a tweet on X, or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, asking for some questions. So if you want to get that in, and then tune in around 12:50 p.m., we'll be answering your questions. But go ahead and reply to the tweet and let us know what's on your mind. Boy, some exciting matchups in the Fantasy Football Today League. Heath barely beat me. Jamie, what a win.
Oh, yeah.
Like 1 point. All we needed, I was rooting against Jamie for standings purposes. All we needed was one more sack by that Cowboys defense. They got that last sack. It was so close. Jamie was playing against them. He had Trey Tucker.
So I almost, I'm going to get crushed because I lost Drake London and don't have Quentin Johnston. Not that he's been great, but like my receiving core is barely hanging on at this point. But I was almost going to text our friend Maron Berkson, who I was playing against, when Tucker scored the touchdown, and I went ahead and I was like, no, it's still Geno Smith. He could throw a pick. Like, I'm not going to jinx that at all. And then just watching it was interesting.
Exciting. I don't usually watch other people's matchups, but this was fun to be in. Of course,
also in our podcast league, it was went into the game with Pickens versus CeeDee Lamb with a slight lead, and then when Lamb scored the touchdown, we were like, uh-oh. And then Pickens dominated.
Oh, I lost by 0.4 in the podcast league.
Watching this live is fun.
Oh, I didn't even check because I had such a bad week. I was like, forget it.
No, Adam, I'll let you curse. Go ahead, say a bad word.
No,
I'll let you curse.
This has been not my year. I'm going to rename all my teams down at the 1 yard line.
Somebody, Colts fan just asked the question. Should Dan be happy or upset about this? So I don't know if he's tanking or not in one of the dynasty leagues we're in, because he's 500. He was maybe 5-6 or 6-5 coming into. No, he was 500. Right, it was week 11, so he's 5-5, and he would have beaten me. I'm in first place. He would have beaten me if he did not leave Tucker Kraft and Chase Young in his lineup. One is on IR, one's on a bye. So I don't know if he's tanking. And did that purposely. But the rest of his lineup was completely legit. But he left Quinnen Williams on his bench, which would, I think, put him over the top. I think he lost by 8. And any tight end. He has like 3 tight ends on his bench. So he would have won. So I don't know if he's happy, like, oh, I would have beat you. So he could talk trash that way. Like, if I set my lineup, I could have beat you. Or,
oh, yeah, he'll figure out a way.
I'm sure he will. Or it's just me saying, you didn't set your lineup, and we make fun of him that way.
Going back to the podcast league, Jamie, Adam lost by 0.38. Quentin Johnston was in his lineup.
Yeah.
And you know how he's been all about Quentin Johnston.
Pathetic. I don't think I had another option. All right. Anyway,
you also started Greg Dulcich at tight end.
Oh yeah, Dave. He outscored Pat Freiermuth.
What did.
I lost Sam Laporta. What am I supposed to do? All right.
You would have lost either way, no matter who you started.
We will take a break and come back and talk about FAB. Talk about the news and a lot of news and notes. Get into the waiver wire after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
I know that feeling.
You want to say it? Just say a bad word.
No,
say fiddlesticks.
It just sucks. I'm having one of these years. I'm snake bit. Man. All right. Anyway, I don't know how much you have to get into FAB. If you need someone, just get them. But just bear in mind, if you spend a lot of fab tonight on Emmanuel Wilson or Kenneth Gainwell, you're obviously running the risk of not having.
I tried to be conservative with how I framed it in the story, just based on like clearly similar sentiment. If you need him, go get him, especially if you're the Jalen Warren or Josh Jacobs manager, you want to make sure you just have that backfield locked up. Clearly it's a different story. But to your point, like we may be sitting here and you're like, oh my God, I just wasted all this fab on a backup.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So look, I think if you have a very good record right now, you're making the playoffs. There's a lot of value to holding on to some fab, because when you get to the fantasy playoffs, you're not competing on the waiver wire with that many teams. And if you've got all the fab, you can get every player you want, and you can get every player your opponent wants in some cases too. So if you can withstand it, hold on to your fab and have that strength going into the fantasy playoffs. Okay, with that said, let's break down the news and notes here. Michael Penix Jr. is out for the season with a knee injury, so it's Kirk Cousins' time. It's also going to be an interesting week in 2 quarterback leagues. Aaron Rodgers has this broken wrist, so we'll hope to get an update today at Chicago this week for the Steelers. Justin Herbert should be fine. Bryce Young's got an ankle injury. I kept mentioning this. We'll see if he's able to play this week. He played through it, but sometimes it's easier to play through it than to play the next week. Jordan Love's got a sore shoulder. He says he'll be fine. CJ Stroud, they're playing Thursday against Buffalo. His status is unknown. Dylan Gabriel's in the concussion protocol. Right now, he's not expected to start. Probably going to be a Shadur Sanders week, but they did say that Dylan Gabriel is the starter when healthy. Of course, Sanders could change that with a big performance. The Jets are going to start Tyrod Taylor this week at Baltimore. He's 3% rostered.
So glad I told you that yesterday.
Yeah. Running back news. Ramondre Stevenson's going to practice today. We got the Jacobs, Jalen Warren news, Amari DiMercato. I haven't seen anything on him. Have we seen anything on DiMercato?
DiMercato, Schefter tweeted this morning that it's a high ankle sprain, most likely going to miss this week.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, so now we just have to find out about Trey Benson, if he's going to play. We still don't know that. Drake London's week to week. Calvin Ridley out for the season. Jamar Chase is, as of now, suspended for a game, but he is appealing it. Kayshon Boutte is going to practice this week. Interesting note on Kayshon Boutte. He runs the most go routes in the NFL. He's facing the Bengals. From what Dave and I have looked up on True Media, which uses PFF data, the Bengals have only given up 2 completions all year on go routes, which is weird, oddly low, but that's what the data says. And that's about it for wide receiver. Offensive line, Lane Johnson, the Eagles, he's out 4 to 6 weeks with a Lisfranc injury. Big deal for them. And defensively, are there any teams that are so beat up defensively that we're targeting them? Maybe. I think the fact that the Bengals lost Cam Taylor-Britt, not that he's been that good, that could be significant for them. Atlanta's been injured. Oh, I got a good IDP guy.
Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona. San Francisco.
Niners.
Yeah, the replacement for Fred Warner, Tatum Bethune.
Yep.
He's out a few weeks with a high ankle sprain. Also, Eddie Pinheiro, who's been great, their kicker, he's out. But it is Curtis Robinson. That's your IDP pickup of the week. He will now be, I think, playing middle linebacker for the 49ers, and he had 5 solo tackles, 2 more assisted tackles, and that was replacing Bethune. So Curtis Robinson is a guy that I'm spending the rest of my $3 in fab in our IDP league on. Jamie, if you want him, you're going to have to spend more than $3. All right, football fans, picture this. You bet on your favorite player to score the first touchdown in the game, but his teammate scores instead. If this happens, BetMGM wants to give you another chance at the end zone. With BetMGM's second chance promotion, you'll get your stake back if your first touchdown scorer scores second instead. So that's right. Bet on any pro football player to score the first touchdown of the game. And if you're right, you win. And if your player scores second, you get your stake back in cash. With BetMGM's second chance offer, you have a chance to keep the fun going after the first player crosses the goal line. So try a first touchdown scorer wager with confidence today. BetMGM, make it legendary. Top 3 at each position. Jamie, who are our top 3 quarterbacks? We haven't talked about this crappy position. Top 3 quarterbacks this week.
Yeah, Jacoby Brissett, actually, very good option based on what we've seen from him in 5 games without Kyler Murray. Last week was probably the most surprising one, just simply because we didn't have high expectations after Marvin Harrison was ruled out, but he performed historical based on how many completions he was able to accrue, but he's the easy choice there. After him, it's just a mixed bag. So I have Jameis Winston second and Bryce Young third. We'll keep an eye on Young with the ankle injury. Jameis looks like he's going to get another start since Jackson Dark's still in the concussion protocol as of Monday. And I think Winston will probably throw the ball a lot more than he did against the Packers, against the Lions in their building, most likely chasing points from the opening kick.
Okay, Brissett has Jacksonville this week. That's great, even though Justin Herbert. Tampa Bay, they're 23rd against quarterbacks. Then the Rams, then Houston. So that's kind of tough. But
too great to stay away.
Yeah, and then you've got Atlanta and Cincinnati in week 16 and 17. So at least one of those is good. You could argue that Jacoby Brissett should be the, if you're worried about that running back situation, you don't need one, that he could be your number one priority this week.
He's a great pivot if you've been starting Herbert or Nix. And obviously, if you went to Tua last week, who I thought would play well, did not against Washington. So 3 quarterbacks on a bye that you can look at and say, okay, I'm going to go get this guy. And the Jane Daniels manager, too, that was replacing him also.
Okay, Dave, top 3 running backs.
For me, Emmanuel Wilson's first, Kenneth Gainwell's second, Chris Rodriguez is third. That answer could change in like 3 hours because we might get some information that could push Gainwell down or up. But those would be my first 3 priorities, with Bashal Tutin right behind Rodriguez.
Not Sean Tucker?
Not Sean Tucker, because he's fighting 2 battles. Number 1, when Bucky Irving comes back, I think Bucky's going to have a sizable role. Number 2, I'm going to take you all the way back to 2024 when Sean Tucker had an amazing game against New Orleans. Tons of touchdowns, tons of total yardage. And the very next week, he went right back to being just like a nominal player for Tampa, and he never really even gained a foothold in having a big role the rest of the season. And so he's also fighting coaches' decisions and whether or not they're going to give him the same type of opportunity that he had in a half, really, against Buffalo.
Okay. And I apologize for not remembering your answer from, man, that was at least 15 minutes ago. If Warren
is out, Gainwell is number 1 for everybody. Doesn't matter what your needs are. Go get Kenneth Gainwell.
But you think there's a better chance of Warren playing this week than Jacobs as of now?
As of now. As of 9:03 a.m. Eastern time on Tuesday, November 18th. Oh, my God. It's my wife's birthday.
No, it's not.
It's not.
Jamie, top 3 wide receivers.
Yeah, Michael Wilson would be one. Clearly, if he gets another chance, he's got top 15 upside based on what we saw last week with the 18 targets. And I think just you look past that a little bit, even what Marvin Harrison was doing. He had 10 targets and 12 targets in the previous 2 games with Jacoby Brissett. I have Christian Watson 2 and Yoshavas 3. Just looking at what Watson hopefully will do. They're still, I think, trying to adjust to life without Tucker Kraft. And Watson, I would like to see more targets, but hopefully the upside continues to show through. And then I'll just take a chance on Yoshavas against the Patriots without Chase there. Chase averages 11.7 targets per game. Yoshavas has 2 games this season with 7 targets. He's been over 13 PPR points in both of those. So I'm expecting the Bengals to be the Bengals and throw the ball a lot. And so hopefully he benefits with the additional targets.
All right. Michael Wilson, Christian Watson, Andre Yoshavas, and Dave, top tight ends. Again, another guy I think you could make a case should be the number 1 waiver wire priority in Juwan Johnson.
Agreed. And it really comes down to your team being just so loaded, except you're streaming tight end, or maybe you traded away a stud tight end and you never really recovered. Juwan's out there in 54% of leagues. He's good for around 10 PPR points as a floor from week to week. And I think most Saints games are going to follow a pretty similar game script where they're trailing and they have to throw, and that's good for Juwan Johnson. But this week might be a little bit different against Atlanta. So even if Juwan has a bad game this week, you should stick with him. Dalton Schultz does hit the threshold, 35% available in fantasy leagues on CBS. If he were out there, I would be interested in him as well. And then I kind of like Noah Fant as far as one of those easy check down guys for Joe Flacco to throw the ball to after 2 seconds in his drop back. And if he continues to see that type of target volume, he'll be okay for fantasy. He kind of has the same floor as Juwan Johnson, maybe not the same type of ceiling, and is certainly more of a short-term option. But I think you've got to consider him if the Bengals are playing without Jamar Chase. Those targets do have to go elsewhere. I do think Yoshavas is in play, but I don't mind Noah Fant if you're scrambling at tight end, and he's out there in 82% of leagues.
So Schultz with the Man, I've been trying to think of an analogy here, and I can't think of anything. But starting a tight end against the Bills is like starting starting a quarterback against the 85 Bears. The Bills are so good against tight ends. It's insane. I think only Kelsey has had more than 4 targets, maybe
That's correct.
4 or 5.
And it was 5 targets.
Yeah, Kelsey's
So
double-digit points.
The argument for Schultz is going to be the same argument that I had for Cade Otton last week, and it clearly did not work out for Cade Otton. It's not a function of the matchup; it's a function of the offense. And that what does Davis Mills do a lot, and that's throw underneath to Dalton Schultz. And I thought the Bucs were going to do that a lot. Part of the reason why they didn't was because they were able to run the ball so well. So the same thing could happen in Houston, I suppose. I don't think the running backs in Houston are as good as the running backs in Tampa. But I still think Dalton Schultz can get you to 10 PPR points this week.
I would take the under, but I would still pick him up.
Okay.
And Juwan is not just a this week play; it's a rest of season play.
So Schultz, but I think just
more so than now Noah Fant. Yes,
what you're looking at for Schultz is clearly he's rostered in a lot of leagues, so it's more the shallow leagues on our site. I think you just want to make sure you have the ability to start him rest of season.
Yeah. Okay. So, by the way, if you want a little breakdown of Nico Collins with CJ Stroud versus with Davis Mills, some interesting numbers, check out Beyond the Box Score yesterday. You can just look at the time codes. It's pretty late in the episode, but if you're curious about that, we dug in. Now, it is time for coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Jamie, give us a DST to stream this week.
So the best one, it just meets the threshold, but should be very good, is the Browns. 65% roster taking on the Raiders. They did a great job against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens last week. Clearly one of the best defenses, despite their poor record. And Myles Garrett is having a historical season, so he should make things very uncomfortable for Geno Smith. But there's some good options this week. You know, Daniel Jones has struggled on the road, and the Chiefs coming off of a loss. So I think they're at home, right?
The Chiefs are at home.
The Chiefs are home, yeah. So Daniel Jones, not the best spot for him, so I could see him turn the ball over a little bit. Raiders get Shedeur Sanders, and Max Crosby should make life uncomfortable for him. Jaguars, we've seen Jacoby Brissett play great, but we've also seen 4 turnovers in the last 2 weeks, and so they did a great job, obviously, against the Chargers last week. These are more low-end options, the last 2, the Jaguars and the Saints, but the Saints get Kirk Cousins without Drake London, and Cousins has not looked good coming off a bye. Could be a fun week for the Saints DST this week.
I just want to see where the Jaguars DST ranks overall, because I've been sort of surprised. They've had a lot of really good games.
Early in the season, they were great, yeah.
Yeah, and Brissett takes a lot of sacks. Now, he didn't take any sacks last week because the 49ers can't sack anyone. But before that, 16 sacks in his previous 3 games. The Jaguars are, what I'm looking at, they're the number 7 DST in our Fantasy Football Today league, which just has kind of standard CBS scoring. It'll obviously be different in your leagues, but the Jaguars have been pretty good a number of times this year, including the last 2 weeks. So it's an interesting play. There's one DST that has a good schedule going forward, not just this week. I think it's the Jaguars. Oh, yeah, it is. It's the Jaguars are at Arizona, which may not seem great, and it may not be, but again, there's the sacks. Tennessee, they're the best matchup on the road. Then the Colts, we just talked about, they've been turning it over. Then the Jets. So Jacksonville's next 4 games: at Arizona, at Tennessee, Indianapolis, Jets. All right. That was coverage you can count on, sponsored by Nationwide. Kickers, Jamie?
Let's see. I have Harrison Butker in his building against the Colts. Jake Elliott against the Cowboys. They give up a lot of fantasy points to kickers. Mike Badgley coming back from his bye week. He's been pretty solid. And then the Cardinals, top 5, I believe, in fantasy points allowed to the position. So Cam Little. Favorable environment as well.
Yep.
Okay. And the IDP name I gave was, again, Curtis Robinson, linebacker for the 49ers.
Just put in a $4 bid for him. Thank you.
There you go. I'm pretty much out of that league.
Oh, so am I. Heath and I were fighting for whoever's going to finish last night. I won in another one that was close to tie him at 4-7.
Yeah, I'm 4-7 also in that league. CBS not representing in the IDP league so well this year.
Yeah.
So email of the day is from Randy.
Imagine playing against 2 of the best IDP people in the industry. Smart.
And they're both doing well, right?
Yeah, they always do.
Yeah. All right. Email of the day is from Randy. I'm a longtime fantasy football player, more than 20 years of experience. Wants to know, what's the etiquette for the waiver wire when you're out of contention? Is there any etiquette for the waiver wire when you're out of contention?
When you're out of contention, that shouldn't matter when it comes to the waiver wire. You're still playing. It's not like you're kicked out of the league just because you've got 9 losses and you've had a pathetic year. But you're still entitled to go after players on the waiver wire.
You do whatever you want. But also, if you don't want to go after players on the waiver wire, I understand that too. And which is why I kind of like having players who have late bye weeks, because I figure at that point, 3 or 4 managers in my league are probably just giving up and not even making waiver claims anymore. And it's going to be easier for me to get the guys I want.
Now, what I will say,
your potential record.
No, I don't draft it that way. I don't mind. Some people don't like having guys with late bye weeks. I would prefer it, but it's not a factor for me.
Yeah, but you don't go out of your way looking for that.
No.
That might be a tiebreaker between 2 players when you're drafting your team, but that's about it. Now, what about this? There's a pathetic team with 8 losses, 9 losses, and they want to make trades before the trade deadline. Even if they're not mathematically eliminated, I think you've got to let them do it as long as it's not egregious. But I think once you are mathematically eliminated from a playoff spot, you shouldn't be allowed to make trades.
I was just about to bring that up because someone in the chat had that very same question, and that is, the fantasy cops have stated that a mathematically eliminated team cannot make trades. We cannot let that happen. That is worthy of a veto. Don't do it. All right, we'll be right back to talk about
in redraft.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Dynasty keeper leagues, you're never out of it in a dynasty keeper league.
Dude, I didn't post this. Get this out of here. All right. So
See, this is when people think that Johnny is really Thomas.
Oh man,
Is it?
It's compelling evidence. All right. We'll be right back with shallow leagues, deep leagues, and more on Fantasy Football Today.
You can't count on accurate expiration dates.
That is a rookie mistake.
Or the kindness of strangers. But thanks to CBS Sports, you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Now that I'm thinking about it, we have Johnny in one of the super leftover leagues. And you know who got me his email address?
Yeah.
Thomas.
Right, exactly. Thomas Schaefer 2 at whatever.com. Yeah. It's
Johnny even
airport.
He just posted, Dave will pick up your waiver wire target and then put them in his IR until Sunday at 12:30.
Yes, Dave, we just showed that.
Oh, I wasn't looking. I didn't know no, I wasn't watching the stream. So everybody saw that comment. That does sound like something that I might have done at one point in my life. I don't think a rando would have known that, but Thomas would have.
Johnny says, I'm a person, really, I swear. Thomas says that every morning, right before the show starts. All right. So, Jamie, shallow league guys, the guys who are rostered in more than 65% of leagues, if there are a few prizes out there, who are they?
You want position or you want the prizes?
First, I want the prizes. I want the headliners that definitely we need to get them.
Yeah, there's 2 for me. One would be, I guess 3 if you want to say Trey Benson maybe plays this week, but I'll say 4. Forget it. So the first one would be Brock Purdy, coming off a strong game. I think he plays well again against Carolina. Not the easiest of schedules moving forward. Still has a bye week, but you know what he's capable of when he's healthy. At running back, we'll say Trey Benson, because if he does get the opportunity to return this week, he could immediately become an top 20 running back, or at least an RB2. At wide receiver would be Alec Pierce. Went into his bye playing very well. 3 of his last 4 games. Over 14 PPR points. Last 2 were amazing. And I think we're going to see a lot more throwing from the Colts because of some of the schedule and maybe shootouts that we're going to see. And then the 4th would be Kyle Pitts. Last time we saw him in this exact spot with Kirk Cousins without Drake London, he had 9 catches. And so clearly having a little bit of a struggling stretch, but I think it's easy to say he's the best pass catcher without Drake London there, who's going to be week to week. So Kyle Pitts should be a must rostered and must start player this week.
Okay. Would you pick up Trey Benson or Kenneth Gainwell, Emmanuel Wilson?
I think it comes down to what you need, clearly, because if you are stuck this week, you need the guaranteed points. And if one of those 2 guys starts, they're both ranked in my top 17 running backs for this week. Gainwell is a top 12 guy, and Wilson, solid number 2 running back. Benson will probably be, I would say, ahead of Wilson, behind Gainwell, if you tell me all 3 are starting.
Would you pick up Alec Pierce or Michael Wilson?
Wilson.
Would you pick up Brock Purdy or Jacoby Brissett?
I would probably go with Brissett simply because past his bye week already, and you get that next 2 weeks of just great schedule.
Would you pick up Kyle Pitts or Juwan Johnson?
I would pick up Kyle Pitts.
It's a tough one. Dave, Kyle Pitts or Juwan Johnson?
Juwan Johnson.
Okay. But yeah, Pitts is tempting. And what about Hunter Henry?
He's been tempting for 4 years, and it's
but he's got no London here. Jamie,
I get it. No. It's a fair case to make for him, but eventually London will come back, and that'll.
I mean, week to week, we have no idea.
I would think that London would come back. I don't think Penix is coming back, and I don't really love the passing offense with Kirk Cousins. So I do know what I've got in Juwan Johnson.
Doesn't it feel like the season's almost over? But there's actually so much season left in the NFL. At least because the fantasy playoffs are approaching. But there's like 7 or 8 games left for these teams, right?
Best part of the NFL season's coming up.
Not 8 games. We're in week 12, so
12.
There's 7 weeks of football left. But
it's really weird, like when I look at the guillotine leagues and you see 5 teams, 6 teams.
Yeah.
All
right, Dave, what are we doing talking about these guys? Brock Purdy. None of these guys are available in my league, dumbass. Who's in the deep leagues?
Bryce Young at quarterback is available in 77% of leagues. I know that we're a little bit worried about whether or not he'll play. I'm hoping he plays. I think he should play. 49ers have allowed almost 24 fantasy points to 6 of the past 7 quarterbacks. Just look at what the last 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks have done against the 49ers as their defense continues to get depleted. But 77%, hey, that might not even be deep enough. So Davis Mills, Jameis Winston, even Tyler Shuck against Atlanta would be of interest this week. And it could get worse than that with Mason Rudolph, Cousins, Tyrod Taylor. But there are plenty of quarterbacks that are out there. And if you talk about 2 QB leagues, yes, Shedeur Sanders would be an option for those who are desperate.
Sorry, who's your favorite of all these new?
Bryce Young and then Davis Mills, assuming that Stroud is out, which at this point I think it's kind of a safe assumption.
Okay. But of the Mason Taylor,
Mason Taylor, he doesn't play quarterback in my league.
Mason Rudolph, Tyrod Taylor, Shedeur Sanders.
Shuck would be at the top of the list.
Who?
Tyler Shuck.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Especially since, like, if you're in a Superflex league, he might be able to give you multiple starts. Mason Rudolph, we don't know how long he's going to be the starter for Pittsburgh for. It might not even be 1 week. Okay. Emmanuel Wilson's out there in 70% of leagues. Everyone's going after him. Chris Rodriguez is available in 82% of CBS leagues. So as long as you don't need a running back desperately this week, he would be the next guy I would go after in those deep leagues. Other guys that are out there, and this is very gross, but it's Keaton Mitchell, Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, Chris Brooks. They're all available in 90% plus of CBS leagues, but obviously you'd go after Wilson and Rodriguez if you could. Wide receivers that are available, this list isn't great either. It's Greg Dortch at 98% available, Mac Hollins 79% available. Luther Burden is still out there in 76% of leagues, Adam. And we talked about him as a good stash last Thursday, and I think he can still be okay.
Yeah.
Jaden Higgins, 80% available. He's not bad. And then Jamie's guy, Yoshivas, 98% available. So in those deep leagues, he could actually be like a 1 week hero for you potentially.
He'd be a 1 week hero.
Got PBR in his eyes. I don't know why they'd be in his eyes. Probably be in his hands or in his stat page or anything like that. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry for using that word earlier. I should stop doing that. It's like 2 shows.
Yeah, cursing is very unbecoming. Adam.
Don't say it. So
what?
Nothing. Back to the shallow leagues real quick, Jamie. Joe Burrow, if he were out there, I went back and I listened to the press conference, and he was asked if the record would matter in terms of bringing him back, and he just kept giving the same answer. He kept saying, "Yeah, we'll just see. We'll just take it week by week. Basically, we'll just see how it goes, whatever." But they're a 3-win team. But Joe Burrow, even if you couldn't use an IR spot, how big of a priority is he right now?
He's up there, clearly. We're 1 week away. So, I mean, if you get the opportunity to stash what could be a league winner, you should clearly do so.
Yeah. Okay. Dallas 33, Las Vegas 26. Let's go through this one quickly here, and we will get back into the waiver wire. But, Dave, any major takeaways from this game?
Cowboys good, Raiders bad.
Javonte or Genti rest of season?
Javonte.
And just in that vein, for deep league guys, Malik Davis is now the handcuff to Javonte Williams.
Yep.
If you want to stash him, as we're seeing now with some of these running back injuries, and another deep league guy would be Jaleel McLaughlin, just because of he's the next man up in Denver if something happens to Harvey.
I got to say, with Javonte, I'm getting a little frustrated. He is the worst receiving running back in the NFL. In terms of running backs with 25 or more targets, he is dead last in yards per route run, 0.38. It's unbelievable. And he has a lot of these games where it's one catch for 0 yards, one catch for 3 yards, or he does absolutely nothing with his catches. You asked me Kyron Williams versus Javonte Williams on Sunday. It's tough for me. I feel like Javonte is definitely going to get more carries, but I don't know why. I'm kind of losing some faith in him. Is anybody else feeling that way? Am I just being silly? He needs to score, obviously, and they're not a good offense. But I don't know, Dave. You call.
I think when we hit a lull like this for a guy like Javonte Williams or a guy like DeAndre Swift, where you see the potential and you see the touches and you're wanting more and just not getting it. It's just the nature of some of these games, and sometimes just how the lack of touchdowns or lack of receptions go at times, and you don't want to label these guys in particular as trap backs, but they have that. Sometimes those performances. And I think that's just one of them for Javonte. You're not sitting him, unless you're just completely loaded on your roster. But, you want to see him. It's funny. You go back to because it's Eagles week. You go back to week 1. He was miserable in that game, but he scored twice.
Right.
And it was like, oh, is this sustainable? He's going to be the guy. We had so many questions after that matchup. And then now he's getting all this work and not scoring. And it's like, come on. So I think you just have to treat him what he is. He's just a good number 2 running back.
If you have Jake Ferguson, he's been getting by, right? He had 5 targets, 16 yards, and a touchdown, 4 catches. He's been getting by since Lamb came back. 3 of 4 games have been fine. 1 been great. Are you picking up Juwan Johnson, or are you just riding it out with Ferguson? I'm not saying drop Ferguson. I'm saying give yourself a second option.
If you can carry 2 tight ends, it's not a bad idea. Same thing with Dalton Schultz. You're looking at guys that are outperforming him, getting more targets than him. I'm sure there's going to be a Jake Ferguson week here at some point. Maybe this week against the Eagles. May not be. They're really good against tight ends. So I think you treat this as kind of like what we said about the 49ers over the last several years. There's just going to be somebody that maybe doesn't have the big game or gets left out. And you just have to, or the Lions last year, for example, you're just starting these guys with the hope of, okay, at least he falls in the end zone, or at least he maybe gets a 4 or 5 catch game. So you just have to realize Ferguson, not the same caliber of player now that everybody's healthy.
But if he's seeing a downtick in targets, and that could be in line with what Juwan Johnson gets from week to week, you can make the case that Juwan Johnson's a little bit more explosive than Ferguson. I've always viewed Ferguson as a red zone weapon, and a damn good one that Dak Prescott likes to lean on. And there was sort of an example of that, I would say, against the Raiders. By the way, when I say Raiders bad, it doesn't mean like run away from all the Raiders. It's great that Brock Bowers had 12 targets, and you're not dissatisfied with what he did in fantasy. And Trey Tucker came through if you started him as a boom bust flex. But you've got to be concerned about Genty, and really you have to be concerned literally about everybody except Tucker. Tucker isn't a must start for the rest of the way.
Tucker, first of all, it's good that Genty's been so involved in the passing game lately. That's huge for him. But for Tucker, 83% rostered, 54% started. He goes 4 catches, 47 yards, and a touchdown on 8 targets in a game where Geno Smith threw 42 passes. Let's say you had Trey Tucker. He was a wide receiver 3 or a flex for you. Would you drop him for any of the current waiver wire wide receivers?
Michael Wilson in a second.
Mm-hmm.
The other guys, I think they're all, it's the same conversation we've had every Tuesday. There's been this guy that has popped up, big game, hasn't been consistent. It's just, I think, the nature of what it is. Now, this is 2 games into the new receiving core without Jacoby Myers. And I was excited about Tucker in last night's game because I thought the run defense was going to be much better for the Cowboys, and the pass defense was still struggle a little bit. So you got lucky, I think, with the touchdown for him. There has to be some conversations happening in Las Vegas about a quarterback change. Geno Smith just not playing very well. So do they give Aiden O'Connell a chance when he's healthy? Do they go to Kenny Pickett? What's the situation that they're looking at here? Because this team, the season's lost. I think just in the case of Tucker, you got to treat him as a low end number 3 receiver. So if you want to take the upside, let's say of a Kayshon Boutte, you want to take the upside of a Christian Watson, you want to take the upside on a 1 week situation of what Yoshivas can be. I can certainly see Trey Tucker hitting the waiver wire even after scoring a touchdown. I think you just kind of sort of ride it out. Their schedule is brutal. I mean, their passing schedule is just absolutely miserable.
True.
Moving forward. And
yeah, jeez.
How much are you going to trust a guy that's been so big play dependent on a team that's, finding ways not to do it. And his best games have come when Brock Bowers was either hurt or less than 100%.
Oh, that's a great call on the schedule. We'll just wrap it up there. But yeah, if you have Tucker, Cleveland at the Chargers, Denver at Philadelphia, at Houston. That's their next 5 games.
That's terrible.
That's bad. All right, let's go to the drop-o-meter here. 0 to 10. 0, no way am I dropping this guy. 10, he shouldn't even be playing football. He should retire. Dallas Goedert.
Oh.
No, not that bad, but you get it. Dallas Goedert.
0.
3.
Caleb Williams.
0.
So this is, I just want to point out, this guy's schedule I don't like, and he's got a lot of cold weather games. So have another guy.
Bears quarterback is cold weather games? No way.
Yeah, but it's not just their home games. It's the road games too. Except they're mostly at home, but it's Pittsburgh, at Philadelphia, at Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay. That's their next 5 games for Caleb. At San Francisco, week 17 could be great. But I said it last week as a Caleb, I'm nervous about him, and I want to have another quarterback on my team.
You want to get
I don't think it's
Jacoby
a bad idea
Brissett.
to pick up somebody else, but I wouldn't necessarily be dropping him.
Yeah. Sam Darnold.
He's droppable. Let's give him a 5 on the dropometer.
It does get Tennessee this week, though. I want to see 1 week with him in a good matchup because the last, I think overlooked once again that not sure how they do it, but Arizona just keeps quarterbacks in check and then had to go play the Rams. And so this feels like an easy get right game for Sam Darnold.
Quentin Johnston.
0.
2.
8. What are we talking about here? He's got 0 points in 2 of his last 4 games.
He's droppable, but he also can work. Is he not in that same conversation as Trey Tucker?
All right, I shouldn't have said 8. I think he's 4. I'm going to drop him in a 10-team league. I have to. I have Jamar Chase. I'm desperate, so I have to drop someone.
I get it. He's droppable for sure.
How about Keenan Allen?
10.
Keenan Allen is also droppable for sure, and more so than Quentin Johnston. I'd go 4 on Keenan Allen.
Tez Johnson.
0.
Yeah. 2, same as Quentin Johnston.
Tez Johnson or Michael Wilson.
If
Wilson,
you need
but I mean,
somebody, it's Wilson.
You're talking about like a potential savior for a week. Like,
All right, so Tez Johnson or Christian Watson.
I probably would lean Watson just because Godwin's coming back. But
Right.
again, you're talking about a guy that's 82% rostered versus a guy that's 65% rostered. Like they're so close.
And if you're in a smaller league and Alec Pierce is there, you should be dropping these guys for Pierce.
Rashid Shaheed.
6.
I want to give it
If
one
not
more week
higher.
against this defense.
Ricky Pearsall.
0.
Same. I don't want to judge him based on 1 week.
Correct.
All right, to the waiver wire. Sam
Now,
Darnold.
all the guys you said are certainly fringe droppable in 10-team leagues, without a doubt. 10-team leagues are a different animal. But 12-team leagues, like if I see Quentin Johnson on waivers and I'm, debating between him or a 1 week Yoshivas and I'm not starting either one, I'm picking up Johnson.
100%. Yeah. Just, I know there are managers that are desperate right now. So it's, it's win time. So shallow league quarterbacks, Sam Darnold, Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, Joe Flacco, 2 Bengals quarterbacks in there, obviously. Who do you think will be better rest that you're just taking a rest of season shot, Purdy or Burrow?
Burrow.
Assuming that Burrow actually plays, yes, Burrow.
Right. There's that if, of course.
Right. I still think it's going to happen, but if they lose again this week, who knows?
Would you drop Darnold for Brissett?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Jameis Winston was number 2 on this list. We'll see if he plays. Obviously, we're hoping for Jackson Dart to come back. Detroit's defense has been much better lately for sure. And Bryce Young, we don't know if he's going to play, but the 49ers, they've allowed 25.7 or more fantasy points to 4 straight quarterbacks. That would be Dart, Stafford, Brissett, and Stroud. So we'll see what Bryce Young can do for
It's just like, will he throw the ball? Because
Yeah.
his 2 previous games, he was absolutely atrocious. Bryce Young.
Whole season.
Well, yeah, 3
Yeah.
games over 20 fantasy points. But yes, but the 2 previous games, like this came out of nowhere.
So I would be encouraged that he will have to throw because the 49ers are going to put up points. Their offense is rolling. And so if they're putting up points, that's going to force Bryce Young into throwing more than 32 times.
I don't disagree, but this could also be a Rico Dowdle game because their run defense is equally atrocious.
How do you feel about
Take the
Flacco?
over.
How do you feel about Flacco this week against the Patriots, who really have not been that good against quarterbacks, at least any good quarterback?
He's still a low-end number 1 quarterback for me. So
Yeah, I agree. And I didn't share that sentiment on Sunday, but obviously it changes with Jamar Chase not there, but he's still going to throw the ball a lot. And it could be a lot of dinking and dunking until he sees like opportunities like he did for the T. Higgins touchdown. I agree that he's a low-end starter this week.
I didn't think what happened Sunday would happen to him, but if you recall what I said to you, his home road splits.
Flacco?
28 plus points at home.
Well, look, we had the worst quarterback week of the year. We had 6 quarterbacks score 20 or more fantasy points. Most weeks we have close to 15. And there was such bad weather in the Northeast. And pretty much all of those quarterbacks, except Josh Allen, who had 3 rushing touchdowns, really stunk it up. So I think that had to have been a factor. It just seems like a major coincidence if it wasn't a factor. All right, 2 quarterback league guys. Mason Rudolph. We'll see if he's the starter at Chicago. They're 27th against quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins against New Orleans. Davis Mills against the Bills. Ooh, rhymed. That defense kills. Tyrod Taylor at Baltimore and Shadur Sanders at the Raiders. Dave, you said Davis Mills is your favorite there?
He is.
Jamie, who's your favorite? Of Rudolph, Cousins, Mills, Taylor, Sanders.
Rudolph.
Trevor
I really want to
Lawrence.
start Davis Mills against the Bills.
Trevor Lawrence, what do you think about him at Arizona?
I don't want to start Trevor Lawrence.
Okay.
Agreed.
Arizona, yeah, they have been really good until last week, and you wonder if the injuries are taking a toll on them.
But even so, it was 200 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
So I'm just hoping if he gets Brian Thomas and Brenton Strange back and has obviously no Travis Hunter, but his full arsenal, do we see 20 points from Trevor Lawrence? I don't know.
It wouldn't shock me if he's at that threshold, but I think that's the ceiling for him.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to have a lot of high ceilings. Okay. Shallow league running backs are Trey Benson and Tyler Algier. Tyler Algier at New Orleans, maybe they're playing with a lead. You never know.
Oh, we're going to see a lot of running from the Falcons. A lot of running.
We've talked a lot about Gainwell.
And I wouldn't be surprised that if we see a lot of Bijan split out too.
Sure. Gainwell and Wilson are obviously 2 huge priorities. However, how will they even be starters this week?
If you really want to skip to the one that's most likely starting, and for me, he may be 3rd. Right now, he's 4th. It's Donovan Knight. I mean, he's 50% rostered, and we know no DeMercado. I don't even know if they open the 21-day window for Benson if he even plays this week. They may just give him a week to practice in full. So he's maybe the safest of the bunch. If you want to say Tucker's going to get Bucky Irving back and have no role, it could just be that's the one you want to pivot to, the cheapest and maybe safest.
It's a great point. Donovan Knight could be
and not an easy matchup, but they just find a way. I think it's every game since Benson went out, which was week 5 against Seattle. So even if you want to throw that game in, so that's the first game without James Conner. So week 5 on, at least one running back, and it's been multiple, but at least one running back has got you 9.4 PPR points or more.
Wow. Of
that group. So it was Carter, it was DeMercado, it was the first game with Benson, he got over 10, and it was Donovan Knight. In some cases, there have been 2 guys doing that. So I keep saying this. Since the James Conner era, it just feels like running back for Cardinals in number 2 running back range, almost on a week-to-week basis.
Mm-hmm. If Bucky Irving does not play this week, where do you think you'll rank Sean Tucker at the Rams?
We are not ranking Bucky Irving yet, so I put him like 23 or 24. I forget where it was. Like, not an easy matchup, but I am curious. Just reading some of the beat writers stuff coming off the game, like they think this is going to be more of a split than it was pre-Bucky Irving injury, with Tucker replacing Rachaad White because of, granted, it's inflated. Dave mentioned the Saints game. There's the Bills game. He averages over 5 yards per carry, but it's not like every week he's over 5 yards per carry. He has an 8-yard per carry game, just based on when he gets these monster performances. But he's so explosive. Like, I don't understand why they would not give him more touches and more chances. And honestly, I was hoping this offseason that he was going to leave, because I wanted to see maybe if he got a chance to compete to be a starter. We knew that just wasn't going to be the case, but would be interesting to see if he does take a little bit more of a foothold of his backfield with Irving there, especially first game back for Bucky. I think he can still be a flex, so I wouldn't necessarily run away from him.
I agree. Flex at minimum.
Chris Rodriguez, unfortunately, he doesn't have a great schedule because he's got a bye, and then Denver, and then Minnesota. They're kind of hit or miss. And
no work in the passing game. He's the definition of a trap back.
Yeah, but
That's
at least
not true. He works at the goal line.
Yeah, at least he's the goal
No.
line.
I mean, he'll score touchdowns, but if he doesn't score, you're not getting anything.
Yeah. Right. I was so regretful of not starting him because he had a good game, but he didn't really have that good of a fantasy game. But if I had started him, I think I would have won. Basil Tootin is interesting. It's weird. I don't really see myself picking up Basil Tootin. I don't know what to make of this. There's no way ETN is just going away. But what are we thinking about him, Dave?
I think that he's going to work into the run game more. I think we saw evidence of that on Sunday, and he's going to continue to work in the run game. I don't think he's nearly as polished as ETN, and maybe he'll get some targets, but not as many. We're talking like 2, and ETN will get more. But this might be where Jacksonville tries to go with their offense and to take pressure off of Trevor. And it made sense for them to do it last week, A, because of game script, but also B, because of what was left at wide receiver for him in that game. I think if Jacksonville builds a lead, you're going to see a lot of Tootin. You're going to see a lot of ETN. He's somebody that I like having on my bench. And if anything happens to ETN, we've been saying that since August when it comes to Basil Tootin too. But at least now you're getting, what do you want to put the floor at here? 9-10 touches on a week-to-week basis. So that's what you're hoping for with him. Not the priority by any stretch, but somebody that I don't mind putting my second or third waiver claim in for.
Yeah.
It's basically Blake Corum 2.0.
Yeah. Because he gets the goal line. He gets some goal line work too.
Mm-hmm.
And Arizona is a great matchup. They have been really struggling against running backs. So I should take that back. I will put in some claims for Basil Tootin. The question is, who do we drop? And then there's Devin Singletary too, by the way. Devin Singletary, the goal line back for the Giants, it seems. Jaleel McLaughlin is another option.
Yeah. And it's nice with Singletary because he is a rest of season option, but when Jackson Dart comes back, like that's another guy who can work at the goal line potentially for New York, and that would take away some value from Devin Singletary. No one's excited to add Devin Singletary.
So if you have Brian Robinson Jr. or Blake Corum, who are some other high-end handcuffs that people might have, that you don't start ever, but you have them for one reason. Zach Charbonnet, maybe, I don't know, he's startable. But do you drop them for Basil Tootin, for Chris Rodriguez, or Knight, or Tucker? What do we do with guys like that, with those high-end handcuffs?
Are you carrying your own handcuff, or are you carrying somebody else's handcuff?
Let's say your own handcuff.
So I think if you just trust the backfield, then you're going to probably stick with your handcuff. So in the case of, like, if you're looking to pick up Basil Tootin, right, who needs a Travis Etienne injury to start him unless you're just desperate, versus you're the Christian McCaffrey manager and you're carrying Brian Robinson. If you tell me right now both guys are in their starting roles, I'm almost certainly going to rank and start Brian Robinson over Basil Tootin. As much upside as Tootin may have, the 49ers running back situation is just so tried and true. So they'll be close, but I would lean Robinson just because of what I feel like what the Shanahan system is, done for running backs over the years. So I think it comes down to, just what you're looking at. Now, if you're talking about you're not the McCaffrey manager and you're carrying Brian Robinson versus maybe picking up Basil Tootin, who could be a flex or also has that same upside, then that comes down to what you really think you want to value rest of season, because you could have 2 backfields. You could have whoever your starter is plus that guy. So, like, I know I have one league, I think I mentioned this before. My running back situation has been terrible all season, but I sort of found my way into both Bears and both Steelers. And so now I'm covered in this emergency situation. It's not great because I don't have a legitimate number one running back. My team is based on receivers, tight end, and quarterback. But this is where I am, and I just sort of locked it up. And I'm going to say, okay, past their bye weeks, hopefully Swift is fine. Now I see I have, maybe Gainwell for a week. You just don't want to get these weeks where they're, messing with each other like we've gotten a little bit with the Bears.
Okay. If you're in a PPR league and you want 7 to 9 fantasy points, Tyjae Spears gets you that every single week. He's 71% rostered, so he's not exactly super.
That team is fascinating this week in the worst way because they have no receivers.
Tennessee.
They have Van Jefferson, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I listened to Mike McCoy yesterday, and there was about 4 or 5 questions about your boy Restrepo.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So, all right, let's move forward then to wide receiver and tight end, and all right, the shallow league wide receivers, Jacoby Myers. He's getting a decent role if Thomas isn't back. He's facing Arizona. Jacoby Myers, 83% roster though. Ricky Pearsall, we want to see another week before we drop him. Alec Pierce was the guy that Jamie highlighted as the best of this bunch, this shallow league bunch, and Chris Godwin. Then you've got Michael Wilson, who's going to be a major priority facing Jacksonville this week, who's, I don't know. I'm not going to look at the matchup because the role is just so good. But basically, the only guys who have done really well against Jacksonville are studs. Chase, JSN, Nico twice, and Devontae Adams. But still.
I think you just want to look at the raw numbers. Jacoby Brissett has made 5 starts, 3 of them he's been 44 pass attempts or more.
Yeah.
In the last 2 games before the appendix for Marvin Harrison, it was a 10-target game and a 12-target game. And then we get this 57 pass attempt game where 18 targets go to Michael Wilson. The volume is just too hard to overlook.
Of course, yeah. And then there's Christian Watson. The volume is also hard to overlook because it's so low. 4 to 5 targets every game. But, he's been fairly productive. Andre Yoshevitz, 3rd for Jamie. Top 36 guy this week?
Yeah.
Dave?
No.
Kayshon Boutte. We're expecting him back against the Bengals at Cincinnati. Then there's Parker Washington. There's Darnell Mooney. Why should I pick Kayshon Boutte over Darnell Mooney, Jamie?
Because you're snooty. I think you go with Boutte because of the quarterback he plays in and what we've seen from him. I mean, Darnell Mooney's yet to score a touchdown, yet to score 10 PPR points, and it's not like he hasn't had opportunities. He has at least 7 targets each of the last 2 weeks, and I know it was sort of a huge surprise how it all unfolded, that Dolphins game, but this was again the same setup. No Drake London, Kirk Cousins starting. Clearly, Cousins was better for Mooney last year than what Penix has been for Mooney this year. He's been, one of the bigger disappointments from the lower end receiver scale, but it's just opportunity. The hope would be is that he gets another 7-8 target game. It is a Saints defense that obviously has struggled for the majority of the season. So not a bad stash if you don't need to start, maybe need to start type of guy just because of the opportunity that's in front of him.
Does it feel like his ceiling is 10 PPR points?
No, I think his ceiling's higher than that. We saw it last year. He had a solid season with Cousins, but it's just Cousins looks like a shell of himself, and Mooney just hasn't performed well. So I would take the over on the ceiling, but I get your point. It's not there shouldn't be a lot of optimism in regards to where Mooney is.
Okay.
Yeah. I can just see if Darnell Mooney has a good game, he's going to be the number 1 waiver wire wide receiver next week because London's out. Cousins look good or something like that.
I
can see that scenario.
Yeah. Listen, if like you said, you're in a tough spot because of Quentin Johnston and whatever else you're
Jamar Chase. Yeah.
Right. You're grasping at straws here. And so you always want to look at, okay, who has opportunities? And when you just lay out opportunities, his is among the best on the table.
Yes, it is. All right, Jaden Higgins is coming on lately. He's got 7 targets in 2 straight games. We just hate the fact that they're playing Buffalo. They do not give up points to number 2 wide receivers very often. Tyrell Shavers had that big game for the Bills. That's a deep league guy. And then Jalen Coker. You mentioned league. Oh, I don't think we talked about that. Xavier Leggett banged up. Yeah. Niners have been pretty horrible against wide receivers.
If we're expecting Bryce Young to throw more, Leggett has a hip injury. He left in the 4th quarter, didn't play in overtime. And Coker, back-to-back games with 4 targets. Best game of the season was last week. And so if Leggett is out, if you're expecting a lot of passing, then he should have a chance to maybe be a sleeper deep league option for week 12.
Mm-hmm. And Greg Dortch is also someone that I just wanted to mention. I think it's...
Yeah, you don't see him on there because I wrapped him into the Michael Wilson
Yeah.
Right up.
He was pretty fortunate. Had a garbage time touchdown, only 6 targets in the game when you had Brissett throwing over 57 times. I just want to throw out Isaiah Hodgins. There
are 2 guys that I left off that I have to go back and put. One is Noah Fant, and the other one is Hodgins.
And if not Hodgins, then Slayton. Whoever the number 1 wide receiver is going to be for the Giants this week would have that kind of Darnell Mooney opportunity, I guess. Well, sorry, number 1 outside receiver. But their defense has been really good. So no wide. Forget. Their defense has been good. Okay, tight ends. Noah Fant. So we'll talk about him. Where are you going to put him?
One more thing on wide receiver. If Booty's out, Matt Collins has been really good the last 2 weeks. If Booty plays, I have no interest in Matt Collins.
There you go. Where are you going to put Noah Fant? Juwan Johnson will be number 1, I'm sure. But who's going to be? Where's Fant going to?
So Fant will be right around, again, opportunity. Chico Okonkwo. You're looking at great matchup. Seattle's been terrible against tight ends most of the season. You've seen Okonkwo hover in that 8 to 9 PPR point range for a good portion of the year. Now, Gunnar Helm actually had more catches than him last week, so that's another guy in deeper leagues you take a look at. But if all 3 of their top receivers don't play, one is out for the season in Calvin Ridley. So you got Io Manor dealing with a hamstring injury. DK is dealing with a chest injury.
Yep.
Dave mentioned it. Van Jefferson is what's left for them. So they've incorporated their tight ends quite a bit. And so I think those guys factor in. But Noah Fant's right there. Again, as Dave said, he's had some good moments with Joe Flacco already. And if Chase is out, I would lean Yosevich, but I get the appeal of what Noah Fant could be. And the Patriots have been bad against tight ends.
Okay. And Brendan
Strange, don't forget about him. He could return this week.
Yeah. Not only does Okonkwo have Seattle this week, he gets Jacksonville next week. So the next 2 matchups for Okonkwo, as unappealing as he might be, are against teams that are currently 30th and 31st against tight ends. Brenton Strange facing Arizona. They are also really bad against tight ends. You've got AJ Barner on here. He had a huge game. 11 targets, 10 catches, 70 yards, and he also had a rushing yard. Did he have a touch? No, he just had a rushing yard.
He's had 1 rushing touchdown. It was against Washington. He's one of these guys like you're never going to trust. But if you look at his week-to-week performance, he finds a way to be productive, whether it's scoring a touchdown or, again, the rushing a touchdown. Yeah. Last week it was being heavily involved in the game plan. Again, 20% rostered. So, like in your case, I'm in a similar spot with a couple of leagues, trying to find the Laporta replacement. We really didn't have time at the end of the week because of when the news happened. But like, I know for me, like I pivoted to Dawson Knox in a couple leagues with the Kincaid absence. Like, take a chance on Barner. Why not?
Definitely Fant for me this week, right?
Yeah, it's totally great.
Not who I know is available in the league. Yep. I had Laporta, which is a 14-team league. Dave, I'm going to ask you about 2 more tight ends, and we'll wrap things up. That guy in the Giants, 74% roster. What's his name?
Johnson.
You sell out.
You got to be you have to be good statistically to have us have fun with his name.
Theo Johnson and Harold Fannin Jr. How do you feel about them versus waiver wire guys?
Fannin, if he's out there, I'm okay with, just because I figure he'll be an easy short area option for Shedeur to lean on. And Shedeur was clearly unprepared last week. I would expect him to take a step forward in that regard. So hopefully he does complete more than, what was it, like 25% of his throws. Maybe he gets up to 50%. Fannin is okay. I'd still rather have Johnson, Schultz. Get back to me on Fannin versus Fant, but Fant might actually be the answer there.
And Theo Johnson?
I'd call the FBI wondering where he is, because last week was the kind of game script that I thought would help him put up some good numbers, and he had 4 targets, and that's sad. I'm not ready to trust him again.
The game script didn't go as we thought. They were playing with a lead.
Were they playing with a lead?
We thought the Giants were going to play with a lead.
No,
he's saying they were playing with a lead. It was a tight game.
Yeah, I thought it was a back and forth game and not high scoring.
Last thing I expected was Jameis Winston to have fewer than 30 pass attempts.
And his ADOT was way down from
weather.
Like Davis Mills had a higher. You thought it was the weather?
Okay,
so then why not more short throws to the tight end then?
He didn't throw that much, but look, Detroit is Theo Johnson's matchup this week. They've been garbage against tight ends. It's been a great matchup.
I'm going right back to Theo Johnson.
Are you? Okay.
I don't know about that. I think we'd all take Kyle Pitts. That's for one. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's not a slam dunk must start guy, but you look at this receiving core.
Yeah,
it's garbage. So
yeah,
You go back and you look at his games when he's had at least 6 targets, and he's been pretty good every single time.
Who?
Johnson.
Dave does a great diehard Theo thing, and he's refusing to do it. DSTs, Browns, Chiefs, Jaguars, Saints, Kickers, Butker, Elliott, Badgley, Little. Raiders, Raiders against the Browns. They're also in there. And Detroit against the Giants, if they're about 70% rostered. All right, that's it for this show. Thanks for watching and listening, everybody. We will talk to you tomorrow on Fantasy Football Today.